Hey, Aaron.
Hello, hello. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, thank you. Excited to be here at the Epiphan booth at NAB.
Yes, it's been a great show. We are just wrapping up today. This is the fourth and final day in Las Vegas. So tell me, what are you doing at NAB this year?
Been doing. It's been a lot of fun to check everything out going on at the booths here, checking out all the new gear and tools, and been actually doing a bunch of filming and actually posting these videos as they've been happening throughout the show. So check out my Instagram. Most of them are on the Instagram account right now, AaronPK_TV, and you can see some of the highlights of what I've been checking out around the booth, and more is coming still. So yeah, lots of cool stuff here.
So you mentioned a lot of different cool things. We talked a little bit about some cool technology that you saw earlier today. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah. There's a huge variety of stuff here, and one of the things that I've been interested in trying to explore more as like a new thing that I haven't done much of before is the whole concept of virtual sets and virtual production, merging 3D and real film stuff. So there's been a couple of very flashy booths around here with very expensive LED walls and very expensive tracking systems, and those are great and they look amazing. But I'm curious if there's something that's a little bit more approachable to smaller studios or smaller teams. And I did manage to track one down way at the end of the hall. I'll post a proper video explaining it later on my channel. But they have a very cool small setup on a slider that does the whole motion control tracking and compositing on top of a 3D scene with a giant TV in the background, just as the virtual set. You don't need like a $20,000 LED wall. You just use a $400 TV. So I think that's a nice way to make it a lot more accessible to people.
Absolutely. So, content creators, you being one of the most popular ones in the live streaming space.
I'm glad you think so.
I'm always interested to hear what is in your production toolkit now.
Yeah, well, I have two pretty distinctly different ways that I work with gear. One is my fixed studio at home, which does not move anymore. I used to take it out, for a spin doing conferences and stuff, but now it's my home studio. And the other is the very portable studio. And I actually just went live here a couple hours ago on my channel from the YOLO Live booth with the YOLO Box Mini. Just two cameras into the YOLO Box Mini with my phone SIM card in it. And it was a super, super small portable kit. And it worked fine in the convention center before the show was open, which was the key. So I got in before all the other cell phones appeared in here, and did a nice little 30-minute stream. The camera I used there was a Sony ZV-1. I like that one because it's small, packs up nice, still looks good. I've been shooting stuff with that a little bit today around the booths here. And wireless microphone, Sennheiser with the little XSW add-on transmitter, and that's been doing well on the show floor too, at short ranges, of course.
Short range is key word for that.
Yeah.
So us being a company that really pushes the barriers of broadcast, we built this studio in our NAB booth this year, and I initially started out with some wireless microphones from Sennheiser. They worked perfectly fine a few days before the show opened in testing, and then on day one, so much interference that they couldn't even get a signal back. And it was, thankfully, I packed a very good oh no kit, something's going wrong. So we have these SMP 58s, which are super reliable, always work really, really well. SM 58s, not SMP.
Yeah. SM58's nice little wire there, so no interference for that. Works great.
Yeah,
can't go wrong with wires.
Learn the hard way. Everything needs to be wired on the trade show floor.
Yeah. But yeah, I would love to actually talk about what you've got going here in the booth and some of the new stuff that you announced. Because I think there is some very exciting stuff. As I'm sure most people who watch my content know, that remote guest workflows and remote production workflows are not for the faint of heart, with one exception, which I always say is StreamYard, which always works. It's great. It's very easy to throw somebody at it. It doesn't give you a lot of flexibility, not a lot of customizability, but it is pretty affordable and it does work, and it's very easy to spin somebody up on. But I feel like there's a middle ground missing, which is like, we don't want to go and have to spend $20,000-$50,000 on things that TV stations use.
Yeah.
But we want to bring in remote guests into, smaller productions that still are using our professional gear and switchers, whether that's the Epiphan hardware or an ATEM, and being able to work with remote feeds like they were local video feeds is something that is very interesting to me and caught my attention as I came by here the other day. So give me a quick description of the new announcements.
Absolutely. So we just recently, yesterday actually, announced Epiphan Connect for Zoom. And what that is it is an SRT extraction tool. So you take your standard Zoom meeting and you extract ISO feeds from every single participant, creates an SRT stream from each participant, which you can pipe into whatever production tool you use that can ingest SRT.
Yeah.
So it makes remote contribution just so much easier. You don't have to use a laptop with a capture card, and what a lot of people are doing nowadays is what we call a Zoom pinup farm.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of moving pieces, a lot of gears that break.
Absolutely. I've done a little bit of that myself. Do not enjoy it. Do not enjoy the Zoom pin laptop farm. So this integration, though, it's amazing, because it basically, it just gives you an SRT feed of all the Zoom participants, which is like pretty much exactly what I would always have wanted out of this. Because if you are using a switcher that supports SRT natively, like the Epiphan, like the big switchers, like the Pearl,
yeah.
and even the Nano can pull an SRT feed, right?
Yes, it can.
Yeah, so if you're using those, then you just get it built in. But if you're using like an ATEM, if your studio is built around an ATEM switcher with HDMI or SDI inputs, then you can get hardware that turns an SRT feed into HDMI or SDI.
Yeah.
And then you just use the Epiphan cloud to do the Zoom to SRT conversion, pull in that feed into your physical video studio. And yeah, I am looking forward to trying that out when I get home, because that is pretty much ideal.
And the interest for that has been really off the charts. What we're actually doing is we're giving away a month free subscription to Epiphan Connect. That comes with 5 hours of extraction time for free. Just head to our website, epiphan.com/connect, enter your email, and one of us, maybe me, probably me, will reach out to anybody who signs up, make sure you're set up right, and you'll be able to test it out and see if it works for your own production workflow.
That's very cool. Definitely give that a shot, and I will make sure I do that as well when I get back home and do some tests with some remote guests and bring them in to my live streams, which will be running on the ATEM Constellation 4ME that I've got in the studio, and through my Magewell SRT to HDM or SDI device at the studio. So yeah, I can't wait to try that out. That is very cool.
And we actually played around with that yesterday during our announcement, during our integration announcement. We brought random people in that joined the show into the production, and it was seamless. It was so much fun.
That is so cool.
And it's very risky to do something like that,
yes.
But we pulled it off. And let's bring in our producer right now, actually. So Dan is coming in to the stream from Ottawa, Canada. Hey, Dan.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Cloud producer at your service.
It's going great. It's going great. The show is just wrapping up. We're excited to get out of here, but happy to see you here. So tell me, Dan, what are you doing for us in the cloud?
Well, right now I've actually got a switcher in front of me, so I can switch between these layouts. I think you've seen me doing a little bit of that. But it's also kind of cool because I can remotely operate the studio that you guys have there, but I can also extract myself. We're actually on a Microsoft Teams meeting right now, so that's how I'm injecting myself into the production. But this entire switcher is hosted in the cloud, so for my video source, it's a cloud-to-cloud extraction right out of Microsoft Teams. We could be doing this on Zoom as well. That was obviously our announcement this week, but it makes it really easy to bring remote contributors into your production. And, you can combine sources. So in this case, I'm a remote contributor. You guys are using a Pearl hardware interface in that studio. But because the latency is so low, I think we're at about 100 milliseconds latency right now. So it makes it super easy to mix sources from hardware, video sources, and from a video conference.
Yeah, it's very, very cool to have you be able to just drop in like that. And
yeah. And I can kind of be here backing up your production as well. Like I've got an eye on chat for you guys. I see Eric Lickness in there. I see Koala 20, Bill Mew, Mark Rossman. We've got a bunch of people contributing in chat, so it's nice to see all. If you have any questions, I can relay them to you guys there in the studio.
Great. So, Aaron, another question for you. How do you anticipate the industry changing over the next few years?
Always a tough one. I wonder what I said last year and how that's panned out. But I do think that that this whole hybrid workflow is not going away and will become more and more important.
Mm-hmm.
And this tool and the Zoom extraction and the cloud switchers and that kind of stuff is, I think, a very important part of it, and I think we're going to see more of it. Also, Blackmagic's entry into the network, IP-based video, I don't think is an accident. As far as like how we're going to see that moving also. So yeah, I expect that that hybrid stuff's going to get easier and more affordable and more accessible, and it's just going to become a lot more normal.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about cloud. How do you see hardware changing the industry, or do you think we're really like moving? You think we're moving like entirely into the cloud in that case, or do you?
That's a good question too. The one of the things that I've seen in a few different booths now is a lot more of cameras that just upload,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like whether that's streaming or recording and uploading clips into the cloud for that kind of workflow. And that's what Photo Joseph and I have been doing for the last few days, running around with the Atomos recorder that is uploading over the cell network that we've got in a backpack, uploading clips as we're recording them to Frame.io. We have a remote editor grabbing those clips, doing little edits, sending them back to us and posting them. And I've seen this, that type of thing now from a lot of different people who are making cameras, like Hollyland has a camera now, and it has RTMP streaming built in. I don't think that'll be the last of the cameras to add RTMP streaming or that kind of remote contribution. And I do think that, again, going back to the hybrid thing, like we're using two cameras right here connected to the Pearl, but imagine if they were just pushing directly up to the cloud switcher, right? And SRT feeds directly into the cloud switcher that Dan's using. And I think that's I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
Really, a lot of pieces of hardware are not being needed anymore, and everything's kind of moving into the cloud. I think it's phenomenal for the industry. The less moving parts there are, the easier it is for everyone.
It's true, yeah.
So I don't really have any more questions for you. Is there anything else you wanted to say to the people, or do we have any questions from the chat?
Yeah, see if there's any questions in the chat. Mark says, can this be done on Teams too? Yeah.
Yeah. So we started with Teams. Microsoft Teams was the first tool we started with, and we just announced Zoom yesterday.
Yep. Okay.
So we've been doing it with Teams for about 6 months now.
Cool. And Dan was coming in through Teams just now.
Yeah, we're using Teams currently, and since Zoom is very new, we're sticking with Teams for now. But Zoom will be live on May 1st, so look out for that.
Okay. Cool. Oh, there was a comment about the producer's audio being out of sync. Dan, did you fix it, or do you want to clarify what just happened?
Well, I might still be out of sync, but I'm using OBS as my virtual webcam, so I might just have a local sync issue that's contributing to that. But at least we can hear each other. So apologies.
Yeah. And to be fair, we didn't really test this a little bit at all before we started. We had a little bit of a delay to get the stream going, so bear with us here.
Funny that the hardware side, the local side, would be introducing the delay and not the cloud. Right?
Yeah.
Not what you'd expect. Eric says, congrats to any vendor who can put a booth inside their booth at NAB for interviews like this. So,
well, that's what we do. We are pushing the barriers of broadcast here, and this is probably the place where you can find the most barriers ever.
It's true. The number of the number of barriers has I just keep finding new ones. I can't even airdrop a file to myself right now.
No.
Like, there's just too much Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz congestion in here. Literally can't airdrop. Can't get my computer connected to my phone's hotspot. And then YouTube on mobile is not great.
Yeah.
The mobile app doesn't let you do everything you need to do, and the web interface keeps trying to drop you back into the mobile app. So that's why we were a little bit late starting today, because I was trying to frantically add Dan as a producer, because my phone couldn't even press the go live button because we didn't have good enough internet in here.
That's the advantage that's the advantage of a cloud producer. You have someone who can just kind of be, not necessarily in the thick of the action with you, who can support the production. I do see a question coming in here from Bill Mew that he would like answered. He's asking, BMDs are playing with 2110 IP Ethernet as well as proprietary RTMP Ethernet, while other vendors like Epiphan and BirdDog focus on SRT and NDI. So what is the future? Where do we invest?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So SRT, I think, is a great option for internet streaming of video, remote, doing these long hops, low latency, and it's a open standard. Anybody can implement it. I think that is where I would expect to see most people heading for internet connected point-to-point video. Now, if you're on a LAN and you have 10 gig network available to you, you don't need the advantages of what SRT compression and low latency stuff, because you have network, your network engineered for being able to support 10 gigs bandwidth.
Right.
And with that in mind, the two options are then Blackmagic's going in on the 2110 versus NDI, high bandwidth. They still are compressed, but there's still very high demand on the network for NDI. And that I think is the bigger question of like, what is the best option for the local version of video moving around a network? And that's the sort of competition, is NDI versus the SMPTE 2110 standard. Personally, I think that a better option is going with the 2110 as, because it's a standard and it's not one company's thing that they license out to other companies to use. Also, with NDI, they are going into the more compressed, trying to make it work over the internet kind of thing, which, I mean, that makes sense that they would want to do that, but it seems like they're trying to play everywhere,
right?
As opposed to like being really good at one thing, right?
Well, that's with NDI-HX, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We actually recently added that to our Pearl Mini as well. So if you need an NDI-HX source ingested, Pearl Mini's got you. Yeah.
It's a tough question of like trying to predict what everybody else is going to do in the industry, basically, which is what that question is like, where is everyone going to place their bets as far as the gear they're building? But I think the NDI licensing is a pretty significant barrier for a lot of companies to adopt it, because they have to pay new tech for the license for it, and then pass that cost on to you basically somehow, which is why you see NDI as a paid upgrade for a lot of products.
Yeah.
Which I think is true in the Pro Mini, right?
Or
Nano?
Don't think so.
Is it just built in now?
It's not. It is built in,
you eat the cost for that.
Right.
Yep. And other companies decide to pass it on and make it like a more expensive version or a paid add-on or whatever. So, but I mean, I'm sure that was a tough product decision at some point that you all made for that. So that's why I'm like always just a little bit like uneasy about the NDI world, because it seems like, I don't know. I'm also big on open standards, so yeah.
Are there any more questions that we have coming in through chat?
I'll just take a look here. I do see a comment from Eric Ligness. NAB showroom floor is trial by fire for all vendors.
Trial by fire, yep.
Phil, you must be feeling that a little bit this week from demos and everything else. So I don't know, Phil, maybe you can talk a little bit about what it's like to be a vendor at NAB.
Oh my God, it is exhausting. It is stressful. It's long days where you're not getting very much sleep. These kind of events are always very, very difficult. You're up at 7 a.m. You're working from 9 until show close, which is usually at 6, and then there's dinners afterwards with customers or partners. And I'm just looking forward to getting a lot of sleep after this. A lot of great people have come by our booth and asked us some amazing questions. A lot of the reaction we've got from the announcement from Zoom for Connect is, why didn't I know about this?
Yeah.
I could have used this last week, or I need to use this in an event that I'm producing next week. And that's what these trade shows are all about, really just spreading the good word of what we're doing and trying to make people's workflows much easier.
Yeah, and again, since we only mentioned in the beginning and now it's like a half hour later, just to recap again, the Zoom integration is super cool, lets you grab SRT feeds out of the Zoom participants. And you can just do whatever you want with it. You're not locked into the Epiphan switcher using it. You can just use it as a generic SRT feed, pull it into a local device to grab HDMI out from that if you want to feed it into an ATEM. You can pull it into a Epiphan switcher, whether that's in the cloud or a Pearl in your studio. Very cool, just like so much easier to grab Zoom participants now compared to all the other options. So,
and again, if you want to go and try that out yourselves, please go to epiphan.com/connect and sign up, and we'll get you set up with a trial. You get 1 month free subscription and 5 hours of extraction time when you sign up.
Perfect, yeah.
So go do it.
Do it. All right.
Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on to the show, Aaron. Really appreciate your time, and as always, it's been a pleasure just getting to speak with you and learning more about what you're doing for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you.